Welcome to Congregation Kol Ami. Lisa? Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, everyone, here in our sanctuary and at home. As we begin our Shabbat together, let us take a deep breath and allow ourselves to be fully present here and building community with one another on this Transgender Day of Visibility. Our congregation has always celebrated the diversity of God's beautiful creations, people of all gender identities and sexual orientations. And today we highlight and celebrate with so many our transgender and non-binary siblings who particularly need our love and support as our world has been increasingly hostile to our trans and non-binary siblings. So on this night, we celebrate you. We say you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved, and you are welcomed here in our community. As we observe tonight is Shabbat Hagadol, the grand or great Shabbat, which means it's the Shabbat before Pesach. And so I hope that you'll have a really good Shabbos this week, a really good Shabbat, because after Shabbat, it's time to do all of the cleaning of chametz out of your home, of the leavening, of the crumbs that fell down into your sofa and into your chairs, and also all the schmutz that got into your soul since Yom Kippur. It's not just a physical cleansing, but a spiritual cleansing as well. But tonight, no work. Tonight, we rejoice in being a community, in celebrating each other. And so let us begin in welcoming Shabbat. Dodi Lee, page 134, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine, from the words from Song of Songs, singing about Shabbat.
Actually, 129.
Oh, 129. Thank you for the correction.
My mistake. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li mizot olam min hamidbar. Mizot olam min hamidbar. בנים דודי לי.
As we welcome Shabbat, I've invited active members of our Open Yad Council, Keegan and Rachel, and new members to our congregation, to join and lead us in prayer. You'll need your special bulletin. Rachel and Keegan, if you'll come forward. You'll need your special bulletin as we have this special candle lighting for Transgender Day of Visibility. Step up close. There you go.
Blessed are the trailblazers who brought us this far and are still trailblazing and still celebrating.
Blessed are the drag queens and kings who remind us not to take life too seriously.
Blessed are the gender benders, non-binary, gender fluid, and third gender folk, those who challenge us to reframe our gender paradigm.
Blessed are the young ones who present fearlessly from the start. Blessed are their parents who make space for freedom and love their children fiercely.
Blessed are the siblings and relatives who educate, support, and love us as we are.
Blessed are the genderqueer youth who are struggling and persist.
Blessed are the 90-year-olds just coming out and those who have been out for decades.
Blessed are those whose lives were cut too short. May their stories live on through us.
Blessed are the survivors. May they keep on living.
Blessed are the allies, learning to be accomplices.
Blessed are those gathered here today, witnessing, learning, celebrating.
May we all commit to continue showing up, fighting for justice, celebrating all the genders in life.
Amen.
May this Shabbat open our eyes to the wonder and blessing of all humanity, gloriously made in your image.
May the candles illumine our hearts and souls with love and peace. May we heed the call of justice for all transgender and non-binary people. And may this Shabbat renew us in the strength to confront those who do us harm. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Praised are you, Adonai, our God, source of the universe, who makes us holy with your sacred obligations and calls us to light the Shabbat candles.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat,
Blessed are you who commands us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
We turn to page 123. If you'll lift the Kiddush cup on high, we'll join together in Shabbat Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagofen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon
Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim.
Thank you both for helping us tonight.
We'll continue welcoming Shabbat with L'cha Dodi on page 138. We will be doing verses 1 to 5 and 9, and a bit of a fun fact, and seeing as we are on this day of transvisibility, the ancient rabbinic sages, and perhaps Dr. Bar Asher Siegel might be able to correct me if I get this wrong, but our ancient rabbinic sages actually envisioned God undergoing a bit of a gender-bending experience over the course of Shabbat as well. So we often say that when we rise upon approaching the 9th verse of L'cha Dodi, we welcome in the Sabbath bride, the Kala. And so in this respect, on Friday evening, God is conceived of as a feminine presence, as the Shekhinah. Whereas on Shabbat morning, during morning services, it's actually flipped, and God is seen more in a masculine presence. When we sing things like Ein Keloheinu and thinking of God as Adon or Lord, things like that. And so even as we move through Shabbat, it moves through the many different expressions of gender that we see being refracted within the divine. Page 138, L'cha Dodi. La 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 L'cha Dodi, ya la 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 Likrat Kala, ya la 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela, ya la 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 L'cha Dodi, ya la 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 Likrat Kala, ya la 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Shakur v'zachor v'diבור echad ki ishmiyanu v'yuchad Adonai la la likrat kala. Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat. B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Ya la 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 l'chad udi. Ya la 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 likrat kala. Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat. B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Rise and greet Shabbat.
Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'metzola, tochem munei am segula. Boi chala, boi chala. Ya la 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 likrat kala. Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat. B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Shabbat shalom. Wish one another, greet one another. If you don't know the people around you, this is your chance to introduce yourself. Shabbat shalom to those of you that are home.
Shabbat shalom, Mom and Dad,
We're
and
not
Mommy
on
if you're
Facebook
watching.
tonight for some reason. So,
Shabbat shalom to all the Kol Ami folks and everyone joining us online. Happy you're here.
looking for Kol Ami, tell me to go to our website at kol-ami.org/livestream.
As we make our way back to our seats, we continue with our call to worship. We remain standing.
Page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai.
There. So that's why you saw me trying to, I don't usually text during service, but I was trying to get on Facebook to tell people where they can find us. So you know, you Hatati, you'll forgive me. It's the modern, yeah, like, you know, there's some things that are just not. We continue with our observance of Transgender Day of Visibility. If you'll turn to your 2008.
As the sun sinks and the colors of the day turn, we offer a blessing for the twilight. For twilight. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, and widen our vision. May this in-between light illuminate our way to the God who transcends all categories and definitions. Ta Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim, praised are you, Adonai, who brings on the evil. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם. אמן.
On Wednesday evening, we'll sit around our Seder table. We'll dip our parsley into the salt water. We'll taste the maror, the bitterness of slavery of our ancestors. We'll eat the matzah. We'll take and share in a festival holiday meal. We'll bless, we'll praise, we'll ask a lot of questions. All of these help us, prepare us for the journey of liberation and the journey of freedom. And we think it's complete, right? We get out of Egypt, we cross the Red Sea, we go to Sinai, we hang out in the desert for another 38 years, we get to the Promised Land. And then it's over. But it's never over, because the journey to freedom is something that we revisit every single year at this season, at Pesach. And we only have to know what's going on in the streets of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Haifa and Beersheba to know that the journey to freedom for our Israeli family and friends is real in their own eyes. the journey to freedom and democracy, the journey for freedom and liberation for LGBTQ people everywhere, the journey for freedom and freedom from oppression and racism for people of color everywhere, for women, should I go down the list, for people who are differently abled. The journey for freedom is never complete. There's always one more step on that journey we can take, one more miracle that we can help create as God's hands here on earth. So tonight, as we sing Mi Chamocha and we begin to prepare ourselves for our Seder rituals, let us know that the journey that we are beginning this Passover season is about one of many journeys towards freedom that we will join in together. Let's turn to page 158, Mi Chamocha.
מלכותך רעו בניך, חוקי הים לפני משה ומרים. זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני יבוא בעולם ועד, אדוני יבוא לעולם ועד. יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי. ונאמר כי בדע אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Even as we march along on our journey towards redemption, whichever journey that might be for you, it's always important not to just keep marching, but to find opportunities for rest, for renewal, for being recharged. And so we offer our prayer, our blessing, asking that God help us to find this rest on this day of rest. If you'll join me on page 160 for Hashkivenu, and there is a bit of English with the version that we will be singing, which you can find on your insert.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, Hamidenu shomrenu lechayim.
One more time, Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, Hamidenu shomrenu lechayim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, Hamidenu shomrenu lechayim.
Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Shalom. Hamideinu Shorenu Lechai.
Page 162. We join together at the top of the page. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed.
We'll now move into the Amidah, our central prayer text for our service this evening. I'll invite you all to please rise. And for those who may be new to our community and our minhag, our custom, we will sing together Adonai Sifatai on page 164 before moving into silent prayer. And I want to invite everyone to continue along with the prayers passed down by generations that we have in our prayer book, as well as many other more contemporary, more modern takes on those prayers, or to simply share and get in touch with the prayers that originate from within your own heart and within your own soul. There's a little bit of English that we'll be singing before Adonai Sifatai, and that English can be found on the bottom of page 163. Comes from our teacher, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Yai nai nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai. A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day. And eternity utters a day. Yai nai nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai nai. Adonai Sfatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai Sfatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. יהיו לרצון נמרפים והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי Adonai tzuri v'goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Yehu leratzon imrefim v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri v'goali. Adonai tzuri v'goali. With our prayers still ringing within us, we now think of those who may be in need of healing in this moment, whether that be healing of mind, healing of body, or healing of spirit. Here at Kol Ami, we are thinking of John Altschul, Aaron Aronow, Gary Ashland, Stephen Baird, Marion Barrick, Roberta Bennett, Joan Bergman, Vivian Bernard, Elaine Blatt, Latrice Bloom, Louise Cantrell, Wayne Cantrell, Bertha Coleman, Michael Dyer, Tino Felipe, Harav Devora Masha, Ba'ita Rezel, Robert Greenberg, Heidi Kebes, Sima Lehman, Elza Levine, Addie Lelyveld, Peter Mackler, Larry Mendelson, Zachary Pierce, Vitaly Popov, Tammy Rabowski, Keith Rand, Ben Reback, Arlene Regan, Ivan Rosenberg, Richard Ross, Myrna Salzberg, Lowell Selvin, Miles Sen, Karen Shanbrom, Edie Schumann, Isabel Simmental Starr, Henry Sommerfeld, Harriet Stein, David Suriel, Stephen Valentino, David Ben Herschel Vabasha, Philip Windsor, Eitan Wolf, and Doug Workman. To these names, we add those of your loved ones. If there's anyone that you're thinking of at this time, please feel free to share their name with the community so that we can take them into our hearts with our own. And those of you joining us online, I invite you to share the name of your loved ones in our chat. And I also want to make special mention of my own prayer for healing on this Shabbat for my home community of Nashville, Tennessee, who experienced what I wish I could say was an unspeakable tragedy, and yet I find myself speaking again and again about very similar tragedies around our country. And on this Shabbat, we are in the book of Leviticus, which teaches us all about the korbanot, the various sacrifices offered in flame or in other ways at the temple in Jerusalem in ancient days. And we often think that that altar, this flame, some might describe it as a barbecue, in the temple, that those offerings were solely for God. They were also for the community. The food was to be shared with everyone, with the priests and with those who brought it. And I often wonder if there are other things that have taken the place of the divine, of the eternal, of God in our country. If we are so committed to certain ideas, whether it be fear or whether it be some ambiguous notion of freedom, that we are willing to sacrifice our own children on that very same altar. In our Intro to Judaism class, we had many wonderful conversations about modern day idolatry, things that we in our culture worship and see as being of ultimate value, whether that be fame, money, prestige. But I'm thinking about guns and some ambiguous notion of freedom and the right to have something that gives you some sense of security, and how our children are being offered up on the altar week in and week out, month in and month out for years. And so I pray that our worship, that our offerings on this altar, even if we don't have the flames and the animal sacrifices of our ancient ancestors, that we will continue to remember what's important, who we should truly worship, and what idols others seem to put in that place. So I offer this blessing, which comes from our Amidah, Baruch Atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, for you alone, in fear and in piety and in awe and reverence, shall we worship. Let us say together, Amen. We offer our prayer for healing, which can be found on your insert. El na rafan Allah. Please join me. El na rafan Allah. El na rafan Allah. El na rafan Allah. Fuah shleima. Rafan Allah, El na Rafan Allah, El na Rafan Allah, Refuah Shleima. El na Rafan Allah, El na Rafan Allah, El na Rafan Allah, Refuah Shleima.
Thank you, Rabbi Levy. Some things take a long time to percolate. A year ago, May, I had the honor and privilege of being granted an honorary doctorate from Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. And there, in those wonderful days, I met Dr. Michal Bar Asher Siegel through all of the festivities. And we talked about, she knew she was coming to the States for this year, for a postdoc fellowship at Yale. And she knew she was going to come to Los Angeles also and teach. And so we talked about maybe that she would come to Kol Ami. And so it took a year, but she's here. And we're so glad that you are. She is a scholar of Rabbinic Judaism, which is a big, we're still in it, everything after the destruction of the Second Temple. But her work focuses on aspects of Jewish and Christian interaction in the ancient world. She compares early Christian and rabbinic sources, and we'll hear more about that tomorrow. She is a faculty member of the Goldstein-Goren Department of Jewish Thought at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and she was an elected member of Israel's Young Academy of Sciences. And during this academic year, she is the Horace Goldsmith Visiting Professor of Judaic Studies at Yale. And her first book, Early Christian Monastic Literature and the Babylonian Talmud, was in 2013, was a winner of the 2014 Manfred Lautenschlager Award. How do my Germans, okay? Her second book is The Jewish Christian Dialogue on Scripture in Late Antiquity, Heretic Narratives of the Babylonian Talmud, which came out in 2019 and won a National Jewish Book Award. So she is a great scholar. She's a great teacher. And I have to say, excited that you are here as our scholar in residence this weekend. Not only is she going to talk in just a minute when I shut up, she is going to teach tomorrow morning, and I invite you all back to join us services and for her teaching tomorrow. But tonight, she's going to talk to us about why study Talmud. So, Professor, Would you come and join us?
Hi, this was such a wonderful introduction, and also I'm very excited and moved to be here. Denise challenged me. She said, why study Talmud? And believe it or not, that was a hard one to answer. So I started by asking my husband, and I said, why study Talmud? And he said, it's an obvious, isn't it? He said, what better way to study Babylonian Aramaic? He's a linguist, so that was his answer. I said, no, not quite my answer. So that was the first one. For this, I need to tell you a little bit about myself. You're hearing from 50% of female Talmudists in Israel in academia. There's only 2 of us, and me and one more person. And since I got my job 2012, there hasn't been any new hires in Talmud. We're getting half of one next year, so we're going to be 2.5. So the fact that I'm a woman studying Talmud, I was raised Orthodox. I was told I was not allowed to study Talmud, so I didn't get to see the Talmud until I was 19 and found out the Talmud. So when you ask me why study Talmud, I ask myself, why did I study Talmud? Why did I choose that? I come from a family of doctors, and that was not an obvious choice. When I was 19, I decided to look at this text that I wasn't allowed to study. After a month or so, I fell in love with it so deeply that I abandoned all other career choices, to the chagrin of my father, who only when I got my PhD at Yale said, well, I guess you're not going to be a doctor after all. So I said, yeah, no, nope, not probably. And I asked myself, why do I like it so much? And I'm going to use the words of a scholar named J.Z. Smith. He was a very famous scholar of religious studies at Yale, and he was a very funky guy. And he said, a very, very important scholar, and he said, there's something about the Talmud that's like looking in a crooked mirror. It looks familiar. It talks about stuff that we know from our culture, from our world, but it's very different because it's a mirror to something that was written 1,500 years ago. So it's by sexist, male chauvinist, racist males who lived in the world that was okay. Everyone was like that. But it still has a very strong ties to the world we live in today. So there is something about it being ours, but not really. And I think that kind of reflects my experience as a woman looking at these texts for the first time, because I was an outsider. I wasn't allowed to study these texts, and especially not in academia, because even in academia, the Talmud from the 19th century was studied by male Orthodox men. So looking at the text from an outsider, this was mine, but was never really mine. I was familiar, but very strangely familiar and very disconnected from some of my beliefs. They're very funny. I think that has to be said, and I hope to prove it to you tomorrow. They're extremely funny. Sometimes they mean to be funny, sometimes they don't, but they are very funny and very self-aware and always surprising. The Talmud is a mess. It's a mess of an anthology. It's a collection of thoughts and myriads of ideas on almost every possible topic, from medicine to math to science to stories about sages to sex to agriculture, and it's like a mess of ideas put side by side, almost without an attempt to make, sense out of it. And it's supposed to be messy. And also super self-aware. They're very honest in their anxieties, in their maleness, in their way of thinking. And there's something extremely fascinating and intoxicating by this. So that's like the short answer to that. Believe it or not, that was the short answer to that question. But I'll say 2 more things. The first is that my own research deals with Jewish-Christian relations. And I suggest this for almost the first time, and I'm part of this brand new field of study that's actually suggests that this text actually has a lot to offer in the term of what it can teach us about Jewish-Christian relations in the 1st century CE, when both Christianity and Rabbinic Judaism became what it is. they were in touch, and I suggest much more than we give them credit for, and really in contrast to everything we believed previously. My work suggests that the Talmud is very much a hub, a place of meeting between those two religions. That's new and exciting, and we're just beginning to decipher and find out how that is, and I'll show you tomorrow some more. But it also teaches us about how human beings come in contact. So ask me why Talmud? Because it's fun, but also because it can teach us about how religion or religious communities come in contact and are in contact with one another, how it happened in the past, and how it shaped Judaism side by side Christianity, and how it shaped Christianity side by side Judaism. And that's no different than the world we live in today, where communities are in contact with each other. So that's directly connected to our world. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Lastly, and I ask permission to say that before I said that, is that while I enjoy doing this for the past, 15 years, and I love teaching it, it's no longer theoretical. This is not just fun. The text that I'm studying, the text that I'm working on, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional. These are texts that are extremely relevant to the world I live in Israel. My country has been taken over by a government that's very right-wing, and not only right-wing, but very large sections of it try to enact these texts written 1,500 years ago, which I love dearly, but understand through lenses of historical context. 1,500 years ago, with certain views on women, on gays, on the world we live in, on non-Jews, and try to enact them in real life, in my country. This is not theoretical anymore. I haven't been sleeping for 2 months. I haven't been able to speak or teach without falling apart. And I visit Israel a lot, even this year, and I'm on the street with my fellow friends, and this is not theoretical, and I keep telling them, my lawyer friends, my biologist friend, my chemist friend, I said, you don't know what I know about these texts. And when they say we want to bring the Talmud back into our life, that means women in the back of the buses. That means that I cannot teach in certain university because I'm a woman. That means that I am told to cover parts of my body in public. I am not allowed to be on posters in the street. They're talking about taking away tenure in the universities for people who say things that this is the myriad of way that this is going to be in now, not tomorrow, not in some future. This is real and scary and horrible. And I'm saying that, and I have to say, and this is why I started with the good stuff. I love my culture, and it's wonderful, and its diversity and its beauty and its connection to my life and what it has to offer us as a mirror to the past of our culture and the way it started and the way it shaped itself in itself, and also in relation to other religion. But it has its limit, and it has its dark parts. And studying it and understanding its historical context is now no longer and only an academic matter. This is our lives, and this is our culture, and we have to stand up and say, that's our culture, and we have to be very brave and look at it and say some parts of it are not okay anymore. And we have to understand why they're not okay now, why they were created, and in what way. But we have to stand still and say, we want a different culture. We want a culture that's connected to that culture and a direct continuation of it with all its beauty and diversity, but we have to save liberal Israel and liberal culture and liberal Judaism, and that's become abundantly clear that it's no longer an obvious end to where this is going. So, why study Talmud? Because it's fun, because it teaches us about human beings and how they interacted with each other and in other religions, but also because that's the roots of our culture, and we are in desperate need to study these roots and understand their limits, their roots, their historical context, because now we need it. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to studying this with you tomorrow.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Professor. We look forward to tomorrow's study with you, and hope that many of you will come back. Services are at 10, and then immediately following services around 11:30, we'll hear from Professor Barasher Siegel. So, Janine, a member of our board, has some important announcements and words of welcome and thanks. Do you want to come here? Travis will do the candles.
Good evening. I get to represent the Board of Trustees.
Wait, no, I want you to
Sorry.
just talk like
Okay.
that. There you go.
I have such a booming voice. Anyway, and on behalf of the board, we want to wish all of you a beautiful Shabbat Shalom. And as always, we want to thank you, Travis, for the audio and the video and all the hard work back there. Everybody give Travis a big roar. And Lisa, you were especially moving tonight. It was so beautiful, and we're so grateful. And we want to thank Michael Silverman for sponsoring the ONEG in memory of his father, Louis Silverman, tonight. Michael, our deepest condolences on your father's death this week. And thank you to Don and Elizabeth Lackman for sponsoring the flowers in honor of the naming of their newborn daughter tomorrow morning. And thank you to Dr. Siegel, resident Dr. Siegel, for being with us and sharing your teaching with us. That's one of the best parts of our spiritual community here, is that we get to learn every week something new. Tomorrow morning, Shabbat Awakening services will begin at 10 a.m., and we will bless and name the daughter of Don and Elizabeth Lackman, and then we will be honored to learn with Dr. Siegel again and enjoy a wonderful Shabbat lunch together. We will also celebrate the culmination of our Introduction to Judaism class. Please come and learn and celebrate together with us. Passover is next week. Do you believe it? I can hardly believe it. So there are only a few seats left in our second night community Seder on Thursday, April 6th at 6 p.m. sharp. $85 for members, $95 for non-members for a glatt kosher Seder meal. And if you've never done this, you absolutely must come and join us. It's pure joy, and there's nothing in this world like sitting in community, learning about our history, again, deepening our understanding of our freedom. On Tuesday, April 11th, online at 7 p.m., join Rabbi Levy for the final installment of his series of adult education classes focusing on the 5 Megillot scrolls Jews read over the course of the holiday calendar. This series will conclude with a class focusing on the Song of Songs, the Shir HaShirim, the Bible's preeminent book of love poetry, which is traditionally read during the days of Passover. Yizkor Passover on the last day of Pesach will be hosted by Kol Ami here in our sanctuary on Wednesday, April 12th at 8:30 a.m. Members of the Temple Israel of Hollywood will be joining us, as is our long-standing custom. Tuesday, April 18th, in observance of Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Memorial Day, Kol Ami will host and co-sponsor with Israel's Civil Action Network, needed so desperately right now at this time, a showing of award-winning movie by Jacuzzi?
That's the name of Jacuz. That's the name of the movie.
Jacuz by Michael Kretzmer. The film is about Holocaust denial in Lithuania and features Kol Ami's friend Grant Gochin and his efforts to confront the Lithuanian government. The showing begins at 7 p.m. and Grant will be here for a film follow-up with Q&A. As always, we hope you'll keep up to date with all that is happening in our sacred community by visiting our website often, frequently. You'll get information from us at kol-ami.org. That's kol-ami.org. Look for information about our upcoming classes and the trip to the Reagan Library for Yah HaShoah. You can register for everything online, and now there's so many things exciting coming up that we want you to visit often and think about what's happening, because it's important as Jews that we stand together.
Amen. Thank you, Janine. Beautifully done. Friends, page 586, we invite you to stand for Aleinu L'Shabeach as the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני המלך על כל הארץ, היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
On this Shabbat Hagadol, we're recalling the yortzites of Mary Jane Solomon Katz, mother of Addie Leleveld, Adele Goshen, uncle of Grant Goshen, and Freda Leah Goshen Yaffe, aunt of Grant Goshen, Walter Hubert, father of Walter Hubert, John Kessler, stepfather of Greg Factor, Lois Freed, mother of Lisa Freed, Leo Hanman, father of Martin Hanman, Ben Karbelnik, father of Steve Karbelnik, and Marianne Karbelnik, mother of Steve Karbelnik, Beth Daniels, aunt of Sam Fibish DeWish, David Benson Rollins, grandfather of Evan Rollins, Werner Lang, uncle of Jane Drunker, and Sam Jaron, grandfather of Mark Purchin. And we're reciting Kaddish for Herb Jacobson, Richard Frank, Lou Vincinelli, Dave Hall, Howard Romanoff, Greg Sonkin, Ruth Forster Williams, Reba Goldman, Michael Simental, Victor Escobar, Alvin Gross, Ernie Benson, Kathy Weiss, Ellen Mensner, Janice Houghton Levi, Anton Male, Josh Kaplan, Don Hollis, Jason Thomas Lodge, Elaine Cohen, Maeve Eisenberg, Bart Kogan, Debbie Blatt, Stephen Shapiro, Carol Rosenthal, Marilyn Horwitz, Murray Blank, Steve Hochstein, Ernie Sosnick, Stephen Wright, Scott Magid, Gloria Brown, Rosina Spitzer, Lizzie Taylor, Jamie Hornback, David Bird, France Shanbrom, and we note with sadness the death this week of Louis Silverman, father of Mike Silverman. And we name aloud those victims of the shooting in Nashville: Evelyn Dietel House, Mike Hill, Catherine Kuntz, Cynthia Peak, Holly Scruggs, and William Kinney. Are there others that you would like to include whose yortzites occurred this season or have died in recent months and weeks, if you'll say their name aloud? And those of you at home, if you'll recite the names of your loved ones that you're remembering on this Shabbat. Together, at 598, we offer words of our tradition as we stand to comfort one another. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yimechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'gala v'zman kariv v'yimru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'me'amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitkomam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudusha b'richu. Leila mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, damiram v'yama v'yimru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru, amen. May the one who teaches peace in the highest of heavens help us to make peace here on earth with one another and grant eternal peace to our loved ones who have died. And together let us say,
Amen.
Please be seated. Our closing song tonight is Olam Chesed Yibaneh. You can find the words in your bulletin tonight based on the book of Psalms written by our friend Rabbi Menachem Creditor. Is it in here?
Olam chesed yibaneh, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. 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 I will build this world from love, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. You must build this world from love, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. And if we build this world from love, yalalai, 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 then God will build this world from love, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai.
We filled our hearts with love tonight, with love of life, with love of learning, with love of community. And let us take and be strengthened by that love as we observe Shabbat. And then when Shabbat is over tomorrow night, go out and build a world of love. We join together in Motzi here so we can enjoy the Oneg Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avot. Shabbat shalom, good Shabbos everyone. Thank you, Dr. Siegel. Thank you, everybody at home. See you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Come down and be with us here at Congregation Kol Ami.